Matt Colville has a really great video called Catastrophic Failure, running the game number 13, in which he tells a story of a game he was DMing that was going really well until suddenly everything fell apart. Now here in this video, I'm going to try to tell you a story of the game that I'm currently running, Sword Coast Adventures, and how I foresaw something similar happening and was able to course correct between sessions and get everything back on track. Before I start this story, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for the support. Alright, so in our game, Sword Coast Adventures, we have 3 party members. Rokus the Elf Ranger, Harbeck the Dwarf Paladin, and Icy the Human Druid. Okay, so they started off in Neverwinter, and they had a lot of adventures, but eventually they crossed the enemy of the campaign, which is called the ATC, which is the Aglarond Trading Company, which is basically a combination of the Umbrella Corporation from Resident Evil, the Shinra Electric Company from Final Fantasy VII, and from history, the East India Trading Company of England. So it's a big evil company who's doing lots of evil experiments and generally basically have already taken over, a large portion of the world. So they're in control of the situation. The party basically went into a Resident Evil type mansion and blew it up. And so now they are in trouble. The paladin accidentally talked to a shopkeeper about the fact that they blew up the mansion while trying to sell some stuff they took out of the mansion, and because of that, this guy told the ATC, and now the ATC was demanding that Lord Neverember of Neverwinter turn over the terrorist Harbeck Alexandrite, the Dwarf Paladin. So they had to flee the city of Neverwinter. They got some costumes, changed clothes, and they were able to kind of go incognito as they went to the neighboring city of Tribor. Once they got to the city of Tribor, they found it under attack by trolls, so they actually started to fight with the trolls to defend the town. During the fight, Harbeck, he used a summoning stone that they bought in Neverwinter to summon an earth elemental to help them fight. During the fight, members of the town came to join, and including the Lord Protector Darathra, they were able to kill the trolls and discovered that fire was really effective against them. As the fight concluded, Darathra saw this new group of adventurers, this elf, human, and dwarf with this earth elemental, and she asked them to go south and look for the rest of the trolls who have been bothering Tribor. So the party agreed. They went south and they were able to kill the trolls and return. They turned in some troll teeth and stuff and were able to get the reward. So the next day, the party went out and searched the surrounding areas to confirm that there were no more trolls and everything was fine. So I think it was in the evening, the party went to look for new quests. Traveling to the different taverns in Tribor led Harbeck to the Everwyvern House, which is described in the book as like a very opulent tavern that caters to the nobility from Waterdeep. Now later, this will be kind of a point of contention. I got the Everwyvern House from the book Storm King's Thunder, and I dropped it into my game without really preparing it too in depth. I just wanted to have them go through Tribor. I didn't expect them to spend a lot of time there, so I didn't want to really develop it too much on my own. So I just got all the NPCs and places from the book. Harbeck, who's on the run and using a secret identity as Jay, he cannot let people know that he's actually a noble. He probably would love to fit in to the place like the Everwyvern House normally, but now he's playing as a commoner, which is something new to him, and this is the first time that he's been treated really rudely by members of the noble class. So when he tries to go there to gather information, they turn him away, said, no, we only cater to nobles. Now this is something described in the book specifically that he doesn't let nobodies come into his tavern. So this is just something I was just playing off of the books. So this pissed off my players, Rokus and Harvick. They did not like the idea that they had just saved the town from trolls twice, basically, and that now they were being treated so rudely. So they, between sessions, were talking about how to get back at the owners of the Everwyvern house. Now, the next session started with Rokus and Harbeck. They wanted to go to the Lord Protector's tower to basically complain about Draven of the Everwyvern house treating them so rudely. But there was a coincidence, which is the ATC, the evil company, showed up with a few guards in town, and they were handing out wanted posters for Harbeck. So Rokus went to Darathra, the Lord Protector, and basically just started telling her what happened at the Everwyvern house with Harbeck, told them that they had been treated rudely, and asked if she could help them do anything about it. She said, not really, because she was democratically elected, that she's actually not a noble herself, and that they're within their rights to turn away customers if they want it. She offered an alternative, which was to throw a celebration for the heroes, the saviors of the town, and to invite all the commoners, everyone in town, except for the owners of the Everwyvern house. So this was, as the DM, I knew that they were trying to kind of get revenge, and I thought it made sense that they would want to do that, but Darathra couldn't really help them with that. So I thought it would made sense that she would make a compromise, so that was my idea. So it seemed like Rokus was okay with this compromise, but Harbeck just went off, and this is where he kind of went rogue, and nobody was expecting what he would do next. So he went to the Everwyvern house and just said, alright, I'm using my summon stone, I'm summoning the earth elemental, using its earth glide to go into the building, like underground, and just spring up in the center and trash the place. I didn't expect that. I don't think the other players expected that. But I said, okay, yeah, sure, you do that. There's nothing to stop you. Now, I could have jumped in here and said, are you sure a paladin of justice would do something like that? It's very disruptive and seems like a crime. But he was very adamant about it, and I knew that he had been insulted, so I thought it made sense for his role-playing that he'd want to do that. So I said, yeah, you do it. The earth elemental springs up and destroys the inside. The owner, I'm just thinking, okay, thinking on my feet, what's this guy gonna do? I thought, well, somebody's destroying his place. The first thing he's gonna do is go to the Lord Protector in Triboar Tower to report that he's under attack. Of course, these are the people who are supposed to defend the town. So he goes there, and then I ask the player for Harbeck, what is Harbeck doing? And he says, I'm gonna follow them. So he follows them down, and the guy reports what happened, and so I clarify to the player, is Harbeck in the room? Is he visible? He says, yes, he's standing in the back. And I say, okay, well, so this is my recollection. Thinking back, I was like, okay, the Lord Protector helped fight the trolls on the first day, so she saw the party with the Earth Elemental fighting together. Now, it is true that she didn't actually see Harbeck summon the Earth Elemental. There were some points of contention about this with the player, because I remembered a couple things a little bit wrong, but the fact remained that she did see them like allying with this earth elemental in battle. So she saw them fighting together, and after the battle, the elemental was still there. Nobody was attacking it, so it was like obviously a friend. So it made sense to me that she would associate Harbeck with this earth elemental. And also, Rokus had just talked to her about Harbeck being insulted by the Everwyvern house. So when they come in and say, our place was just destroyed by a rock monster, and Harbeck trails in quietly in the back, the first thing I thought was, like, Darathra is gonna know there's a connection. Like, to me, that's very obvious. We went forward, and she accused him. Now, he admitted to the crime, and which we also thought was surprising and strange. Why did you do this thing and come and turn yourself in? So we didn't understand that at the time. Rokus and Icy, they used invisibility to kind of sneak in and find out what's going on. And there was another point. The day before, when he got insulted, he mentioned that he was working for the Alexandrite noble family as a reason that he could go in. But, they're on the run from the ATC. The ATC is looking for Harbeck Alexandrite. So he's associating himself with this name. So the ATC's in town. They see this big commotion. One of the ATC guards go in to find out what's going on. And when they hear the owner say, "Oh, this guy yesterday, he said he's working for the Alexandrites." And this guy's got a wanted poster. It says, "Looking for this Alexandrite guy." It says he's a dwarf. This guy's a dwarf. Okay, sounds like he matches the description, and he's causing trouble, just like this wanted poster says. So here we got another conflict. Rokus and Icy, they infiltrate invisibly, and they find out what's going on. They leave town and talk with the NPC friend, and they devise a plan to turn invisible, use her ability to turn in. She's a druid, so she can turn into a mouse or something. So they have a good way to get into the cell, unlock it, turn him invisible, and get him out. So they have a really good plan, and it's just a normal jail cell. There's no magical things going on, so it's pretty clear to me as the DM, like, this is gonna be pretty easy for them to do unless they roll really bad. But of course Harbeck doesn't know that they're making this plan. Harbeck, the paladin, he has the ability Misty Step, and he has a window nearby the cell. So he says, "Okay, I Misty Step to grab my stuff. I Misty Step outside," and he's able to do that, but the guards do see him, so they start to pursue. Now I'm thinking to myself, oh my god, this paladin has got him in this. This is a pretty crazy situation for a paladin of Tyr, a paladin of justice, to be committing a crime, a destruction of property, being arrested, and admitting to it, and then now he's escaping the jail and he's on the run from these guards. This is not a usual paladin behavior. So he starts running away, and I think, oh, hey, he's doing a good job, so maybe he's gonna get away here. Guess what? He rolled like shit. He rolled the worst. And I think he rolled a 1 on his stealth, -1, because he has a -1 dexterity, for a 0. Okay, it was terrible. He was doing a really good job of using his skills to escape, but they had horses to chase him, and the most important part was getting out of their sight, because they were able to keep pace with him, basically, and keep in vision of him. But he needed to break their line of sight and get away. But that's where he failed with his rolls, and they were able to catch up with him and surround him, basically. And so then he turned to fight them, and this is where I was like, we gotta draw the line for a paladin of Tyr at some point. The session was ending, and he was talking about, okay, I gotta plan what I'm gonna do for next session. So I wanted to let him know before the session ended that there's gonna be a big change. The god Tyr does not approve of what's going on, especially turning to fight those who are trying to dispense justice. And so I told him, Tyr is revoking your status as paladin. You no longer have access to your paladin spells or feats. And that's where we're gonna start next session. So we ended the session with a kind of contentious, crazy situation going on. So we had the other players for Rokus, which is Richie, and Patricia, who plays Icy. They didn't really know what Harvey was doing. Harvey's the one who plays Harbeck. They were a bit frustrated being kind of left out. They didn't know what was going on. Harbeck was feeling frustrated because he felt like he didn't really understand why Darathra could know that he was associated with the Earth Elemental, and he was also feeling like I put him in jail, and then he tried to escape, and I stopped him, and then I took away his powers. So I think he was feeling a bit like constrained by me as a DM. This is just my thought. Later I was able to talk to them. I don't think he took it that hard, and he is also experienced as a athlete, so he's used to following a referee's calls, right? So if I say this is how it is, he's even if he doesn't agree totally, he's gonna go along with it, which is very useful, very wonderful for a player to just accept things that the DM's doing. But I want to be fair, and I want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and not like I'm forcing them into a situation. So this is where the point where I thought, okay, this could be a big problem in some groups. This could probably like ruin everything for a group of players who maybe aren't that familiar with each other and don't trust each other, something like this. But I'm playing with my family, and they're older, they're mature, generally mature. So they could agree with my calls. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page. So I wrote them an email between sessions and said, okay, guys, listen, I think we need to talk about everything that's going on. Now, the first thing we talked about was the situation with Darathra calling out Harbeck. So, as I explained earlier, she saw them together. Now, during the session, I had said something like I was pretty sure that they had like patrolled together and that she saw him giving commands. So we went back to the recordings, which you can watch on my channel, by the way, Sword Coast Adventures. We're up to 40 episodes now. So yeah, basically went back to the recording, and we were able to confirm exactly what happened, and that's very useful. Maybe even if you're not posting to YouTube, it might be useful to record your sessions for the DM to go back to. You'd have to talk to your players about if they're comfortable with that, though. We went back and we saw, okay, she didn't really see him directly giving commands in that many situations. It's kind of debatable whether or not he was giving commands in some ways. So we also had to go over that. We said, okay, so in the future, if you tell your Earth Elemental to attack, you don't need to keep telling him to attack each turn. So we determined, okay, those are not him giving extra commands. Okay, so going forward, that's understood. But to me, I thought, okay, Darathra had seen you guys. She was shooting her, it wasn't a bow, it was a crossbow. She was shooting her crossbow past Harbeck and this Earth Elemental as they were wailing on this troll together. And then after the combat, obviously, Harbeck didn't fight with the Elemental, so that's an ally, right? So to me, that made sense. And so I explained that to him, and he was Harvey was fine with that for his character, and so that part was solved pretty easily. But yeah, you gotta talk to your players and make sure you're being fair. Give them a chance to argue their point. But in this situation, I felt pretty confident with what was going on in that respect. Now, the second part that was really important was asking Harvey, what are you doing, basically? What in the heck is going on? Because we did not know where he was coming from with these decisions. So I told him, from my point of view, okay, so you're kind of Harbeck is a deep character. He's a noble. He's an aristocrat. He wants to be treated properly. He wants people to call him by his title, Lord Alexandrite. He's not used to playing as a commoner where he's treated rudely like this. So yeah, I was like, okay, it makes sense that would be something that really pissed him off, and sure did. So the part that I was thinking that he was overlooking was that he's a paladin of Tyr. Now, I think it makes sense for his character to kind of be overlooking this too, because he was so mad. But there was a point that I didn't realize that was some confusion. Harvey was worried about this place because of its situation in the town, which is not something I considered at all. He was saying, why would there be a tavern like this that only caters to nobility in this podunk ranching town? And then this is a problem. Oh, so this is a bit of my fault as a DM. I just went to the book and plopped these things in without really holding it to my standards of like realism Triboard doesn't really make sense to have this kind of place. It's a weirdly described town in the book. It's basically a bunch of horse ranches, but then they have all these different taverns in town and inns and stuff, and then this really fancy, rich place. I probably shouldn't have put this place in. That's, it's not really in keeping with my setting. So that's kind of my fault. And so he misunderstood it. He was very suspicious, and he was sure that they were working with the ATC and that, they had some evil stuff going on within their tavern. That's why. Not, it wasn't just that he was insulted. He was looking for, he was thinking, this is a quest. This is something I got to do. And so I reminded him, hey, maybe there's actually nothing wrong with what you got to there, but you've jumped to conclusions and you don't have any evidence. And that's a big part. The God of Justice is not going to be happy with you trashing this place when you don't actually have any evidence, whether they're actually evil or not. So that's actually besides the point. And so I told them, like, okay, before we start playing next session, we are going to talk about role playing. We're going to have a role playing recap and get everyone on the same page so that we all understand who our characters are, what's their motivations, what are they thinking. So before we started playing, I actually went to the other two players first and I said, okay, this is my understanding of what Harbeck's doing. So what's Rokus doing? He explained his feelings about his character, and they're pretty simple. He's just helping the underdogs, and Icy was pretty much the same. They don't really have any conflicts in their character. They're just trying to take down the ATC and help the needy, basically, the underdogs of the world. Now, Harbeck, he has this other, conflict with, he's a noble, he's pretending to be a commoner, he's also a paladin of justice, but he's pretending to be a normal adventurer. So he's got these two sides that he's pretending not to have, and those two sides are kind of conflicting here, where he wants to destroy this place for them insulting him, and he thinks maybe they're doing bad stuff, but he's also a paladin of justice who needs to follow the law. So it was a very complicated situation, so we just talked about it as a group before the session, and that was so important and so helpful because we learned all about like his thoughts process about why Harbeck was doing these things and how he felt. And I was able to explain where I was coming from as a DM, also playing the god of, his god, saying, okay, Tyr is not happy with you turning to fight the police, basically. He's basically the god of police, and you're supposed to be a police, and you're fighting the police. Before the session, he agreed, okay, yeah, you're right, that makes sense. And Harbeck would be totally gutted and depressed, finding out that his god had revoked his powers. Before the session had started, I was thinking, okay, probably Harbeck will either be taken by force back to jail or he'll give up and go back to jail. I guess he could escape, it's possible, but either way, if he gets away, then there's nothing else needs to be done, really. But I thought, okay, the god is going to be angry, so they need to know like how much damages were done in this place and how much is his stuff worth and how much money does he have to pay back for his crime. So I knew that his god Tyr was going to require him to be punished for his crimes. What I did was I went and through his inventory and I figured out, okay, how much are his most valuable items worth and how much damages did he do? Because I figured that would come into play later. And also I thought, okay, if he gets taken back, I'm going to have Rokus or whoever, if they want to search for his stuff, it's going to be spread out on this second capture. Because the first time he went peacefully. They just put him in jail. They didn't they didn't even make him take off his armor. They just put his stuff over in a corner, so he was able to get it back easily. So now this second time, I was like, no. And there was a thing, I really wanted to take away that earth elemental because it's very powerful and it also got him in trouble. But as a fair DM that I am, I said, no, I'm going to make it random. So I wrote down 20 of his most valuable items, figured out the value, and spread them around. I didn't figure out exactly where each one was, but I said, okay, they're spread out around this tower. Whoever wants to look for them is going to have to roll an investigation check, and however they roll is how many items they get. So Rokus didn't have a plus. He just had +0 on investigation. So he's going to roll a d20, and whatever he rolls, that's how many items he finds. And then we're going to roll randomly to choose which items are found and which are not found. That way it's fair. I can't just take away his Earth Elemental that, I kind of didn't want him to have because it's so strong. So yeah, basically Rokus rolled a 7, which wasn't very good. But Icy was able to assist, and so she got advantage and was able to roll a 19. So he only lost one item. They rolled randomly, and it was his tinder box. That's the only thing. So they were able to find everything else. Now, I said, okay, but I had planned this ahead of time too. The sword, armor, the earth elemental, and one other thing were locked. Oh, his money. They were locked inside of safes and chests and stuff. So he had to do a second thing for those items, which was lock picking. He actually failed on the lock picking for the money, the sword, and the armor, but not the earth elemental. So he was able to get the earth elemental back. Hey, that's random. That's D&D. I figured, hey, that's fair. He actually lost some stuff that is kind of important, the sword and the armor. Now, another interesting thing happened during this, which was because he wasn't able to get all the items. I think that sort of, I don't know if this was what made Rokus think it, but he thought, okay, well, I can't get the money back, and I can see that Harbeck has done this crime. He found a letter saying that he had done 4,000 gold worth of damages at least. So Rokus was thinking, we better pay them back at least a little bit. So he wrote a note saying, okay, we're leaving some of our items here, and he actually left his own gold in addition to Harbeck's money and said, okay, we're gonna come back and pay you for the damages later, but right now we need to run away. The ATC is following us. Oh, that's another thing. Harbeck's passport was on him, so that's his ID. It says that he's Harbeck Alexandrite. So on this second capture, they had proof that he was the guy the ATC was looking for. So Rokus said, these charges against us are false. We didn't, we're not terrorists. So it is true that they did some stuff to the ATC, but they had good reason to. But yeah, so he wrote that in the letter, and they rescued Harbeck out of town and partially paid off his debt and his punishment. Here comes the next part, which, I thought, okay, we do need to have him have some consequences for these actions. So I thought, okay, let me check out Tyr. I went on the Wikipedia for the Forgotten Realms thing to read about Tyr, his ideas of justice, and I saw, he has no eyes and he has an amputated hand, which are in the wiki. It says he got in trouble with his superior god and he was punished for that. So I was like, oh, this is cool. So maybe we can have Harbeck sacrifice part of his body as a way to be punished. So I had Tyr come to him in a dream and give him these scales of justice. And I tried to leave it open-ended for him to come up with his own punishment. But he kind of asked me to elaborate, so I did give him some specifics. So I was like, lots of paladins of Tyr, when they get in trouble, they want to make amends. They will sacrifice part of their body. So he said, which part? And so I said, okay, specifically, some of them have sacrificed their eye. So I thought, okay, this is a pretty big punishment for most players, but this guy, he already has a really low perception score. So it's actually gameplay-wise not a huge sacrifice for him. So that's what he ended up doing. He gave up his ring, which he says represents his aristocracy, in order to balance the scales, which was what Tyr told him. Said this side is justice, this side is got your signet ring from your family. This is representing that you broke the law because of this insult to your family, partially. So we need to balance the scales. Put something else into the scale to balance it out. So he said, okay, I'm giving up my aristocracy and I'm taking out my eye and putting it on the scale. And the scale evened out and he woke up without an eye, but it's healed over. So I just said, okay, all I'm doing is making your perception, instead of -1, now it's -5. So it wasn't a huge punishment, but I think from a story point of view, it's really cool. And now we have a character who's gone through a bunch of character development now. So he's kind of given up his noble family. He's gotten back on track with being a paladin, and he's moving forward after this with a very interesting, complex character. So that's basically the whole story. So yeah, my advice is, whether it's between sessions or during the game, sometimes you just gotta stop the session or kind of regroup with everyone and say, okay, listen, we need to get on the same page. This is what I'm thinking. What are you thinking? Let's talk about it. And once you get everybody on the same page, include the other players who are not in part of the conflict. Ask them, what do you think of my call? Do you think that's fair? And get everyone to talk together. Make sure you're on the same page, and I think everything is gonna work out fine for you. In the end, the most important part is having fun, right? So we just gotta make sure that everyone feels comfortable, everyone feels like things are relatively fair, and that people are free to do what they want. That was the last point I wanted to make too, which is I wanted to make sure the players didn't feel I was punishing the player, Harbeck, the character, for doing these bad things. Like, I wasn't saying, okay, you can't do that. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I wanted to say, you can do whatever you want, but there's going to be consequences, right? I'm playing as the NPCs. I'm trying to consider what they know, what they're trying to do, their goals and their morals. And if they're coming in conflict with you and trying to stop you, that doesn't mean me as a DM is trying to tell you you can't do that. So those two ideas, I wanted to drive home very clear that there's a big difference. The NPCs trying to stop you and the DM trying to stop you. Even if I'm playing as a god or something, I told him, hey, if you really think Harbeck is ready to abandon Tyr, you can become an Oathbreaker Paladin. You can find an evil god to work for, or we can have you change classes to be a fighter even. So you don't have to listen to the god even. So I'm playing with this god what I think he would do, but you are free to do what you want. Now just remember, you have your party members with you, so they might not agree with that. So you have to keep in mind, like, maybe if you become an evil paladin, your two party members are not gonna join with you anymore. But Harvey agreed, no, Harbeck would not abandon Tyr. He's going to pay for his crimes. He's going to turn himself in. So he went back with the guards. Alright, so that's the video. Don't forget to like and please subscribe to my channel. If you watched this video all the way to the end, please comment below. I love comments. Please tell me what you thought of this video. And also specifically, this is a totally different kind of video than my last one. Obviously, it's different than our campaign videos. So let me know what kind of D&D videos you particularly like to watch. I could make something very highly produced, like my DM theory video about Demon Slayer. We do the campaign videos every week, and then I'm trying to do more videos like this where I'm telling stories of our campaigns and trying to give DM advice. So tell me what you think of this style of video. What's your favorite type of D&D video to watch? Are there any specific YouTubers that you like? Dungeon Dudes, Matt Colville, WebDM, those are all ones that I've been watching. And so yeah, are there anybody that you think I should take a look at? And yeah, that's all. So see you guys next time. Bye.